So here's the big debate. Now, Chomsky back in 2016 said that you have to vote for Hillary Clinton because he does the lesser of two evil voting. And so Chomsky went on with Mehdi Hassan, who is, it's unbelievable how he's not any worse than any of the normal journalists, but he's just as bad. He's a horrible hack, and he has horrible takes. Like, you could fill up a book just with this guy's bad hot takes. And, well, here he is. He's interviewing Chomsky, and he takes some time out to punch left and voter shame and try to bully some people. Watch this.
It's time to get rid of the malignancy in the White House. What do you then make of this very boisterous, very online, never Biden movement that we're seeing from some on the left, from some former Bernie people, including his own former national press secretary, some left-wing social media stars? What do you make of the never Biden movement?
Well, it also brings up some memories. The early 30s in Germany, the Communist Party, following the Stalinist line at the time, took the position that everybody but us is a social fascist. So there's no difference between the Social Democrats and the Nazis. So therefore, we're not going to join with the Social Democrats to stop the Nazi plague. But we know where that led. Okay, there are many other cases like that, and I think we're seeing a rerun of it. So let's take the position, never Biden. I'm not going to vote for Biden. There is such a thing. There's a thing called arithmetic. You can debate a lot of things, but not arithmetic. Failure to vote for Biden in this election in a swing state amounts to voting for Trump. Takes one vote away from the opposition, same as adding one vote to Trump. So if you decide...
That's just so ridiculous. For instance, if Jill Stein wasn't on the ballot in 2016, I wouldn't have voted. So that's not a vote for the other person. You know, the biggest voting bloc in America are the people who don't vote. That's the biggest voting bloc in America, the people who don't vote. So if I go out and I vote third party, that's not a vote for Trump or a vote for someone else. I don't know if you know how voting works, but your vote for the person, that's the person that gets your vote. Now, if you want to change the system and make it a ranked choice voting system, I'm all for that too. Guess who's not for that? The Democrats. Guess who's not for it? Joe Biden. Guess what he gets then? He gets to lose again. And I love this, but this whole, I'm going to break down all of his bad logic here in a second, but we'll keep going.
You want to vote for the destruction of organized human life on Earth, for the sharp increase in threat of nuclear war, for stuffing the judiciary with...
He's just making the stuff up. He's just making that. We're going to increase the likelihood of a nuclear war. Yeah, you know why? Because the Democrats have McCarthy red-baited the president and attacked him from the right nonstop for 4 straight years. It's the Democrats who wanted Trump to be more bellicose and saber-rattling with the Russians, not the Republicans. It was the Democrats. So this whole logic is just backwards.
Young lawyers who will make it impossible to do anything for a generation, then do it openly. Okay, so yeah, that's what I want. But that's the meaning of never Biden.
So if we're concerned about the rise of Nazism, maybe we should talk about the fact that propping up the two-party duopoly for 40 straight years, doing his non-voting strategy, that's what this is. This is a non-strategy. His idea to do exactly what Hillary Clinton and the Center for American Progress and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi want you to do and all their donors want you to do, he's doing it. He's saying, yeah, the Pied Piper theory works. Trump is so horrible, we have to vote for someone who's equally horrible. And by the way, Joe Biden is to the right of Donald Trump. Just so you know, when it comes to war, Joe Biden's to the right of Donald Trump. When it comes to health care, Joe Biden's to the right of Donald Trump. So this idea that voting for Joe Biden is some some difference. Let's keep doing this failed voting strategy. that got so every time you do the lesser of two evil, you move a little. The Democratic Party moves to the right, and then it keeps moving to the right. And now the Democratic Party is a full-blown party of war and Wall Street. Full-blown. And fossil fuels. Barack Obama bragged that they got more fossil fuels out of the earth during his presidency than any other time. This idea that there's a difference. Barack Obama bombed Muslims for 8 straight years, which is why there were Muslim refugees, Arab refugees at our airports. This is just a crazy idea. This idea that somehow this voting for a Republican over Joe Biden is the equivalent of voting for a Nazi over a good person. That's not your choice. You have a choice of 2 Nazis. You don't. Joe Biden is the guy who took away our civil liberties. Joe Biden is the guy who helped explode our prison population. Joe Biden is the guy who helped deregulate Wall Street. Joe Biden is the guy who helped cut the legs out from underneath unions. Joe Biden is the guy who made it harder for poor people in dire circumstances in the most vulnerable times in their life to not be able to declare bankruptcy. Joe Biden did that. Joe Biden kicked 5.1 million families out of their house last time there was a recession. This idea is just made up. This is just making it up. So what he's saying, if only we would have had an old segregationist with a rape allegation, dementia, and a 40-year history with enough skeletons in his closet to decorate for a Halloween party, then we could have stopped Hitler. That's all you needed back then? You needed a segregationist with a rape allegation, dementia, and a 40-year history with enough skeletons in his closet to decorate a Halloween party. Then you could have stopped Hitler. It's nuts. You want to see who Joe Biden is? Joe Biden, this is from CNN.com during Joe Biden's term as vice president. The U.S. is running out of bombs to drop. The U.S. Air Force has fired off more than 20,000 missiles and bombs since the U.S. bombing campaign against ISIS began 15 months ago, and they ran out of bombs. That's Joe Biden. Joe Biden make the banks bigger. Joe Biden took us from 2 wars to 7. Joe Biden opened the Arctic to drilling whenever Shell Oil asked. Joe Biden let him put fracking pipes all the way underneath this country after they repealed the legislation that said you can't export fossil fuels. Joe Biden did that. This is the guy you're saying that's going to stop the Nazis? This is the guy. Joe Biden is? Joe Biden is a terrorist. How? Let me put it a little clearer for you. George W. dropped 70,000 bombs in 5 countries. Barack Obama, 100,000 bombs in 7 countries. He bombed more than George Bush. So who's the lesser of two evil? Who's the lesser of two evils? He kicked 5.1 million people out of their house, dropped 100,000 bombs in 7 countries. He didn't kick anybody out of their house. He dropped 70,000 bombs in 5 countries. Who's the lesser of two evil? Donald Trump has dropped at least 73,000 bombs so far. So, and of course, Julian Assange in prison for revealing all their war crimes. You want to know about Joe Biden, Noam Chomsky? It's just amazing. And Mehdi's probably wetting himself that there's something he and Chomsky agree on because it will never happen again. I wonder if Mehdi realizes he won't be able to use this for his MSNBC audition reel because they still don't book Chomsky at MSNBC. Even when he says vote Biden, they don't book Chomsky at MSNBC. Here's my impression of Mehdi. Oh, no, Chomsky, it's an honor to speak with you. What do you think about people who don't want to pick between alleged rapists? Aren't those people awful? What do you think about people who won't vote for a rapist? Aren't they awful? If Joe Biden is a social democrat, then Dick Cheney is a moderate. How about that? I like how he says, "What do you think of the Never Biden movement?" He says to. Well, let's listen to it. Let's listen to it again.
It's time to get rid of the malignancy in the White House. What do you then make of this very boisterous, very online Never Biden movement that we're seeing from some on the left?
That left. You know how he says it? Some on the left.
Some on the left.
What do you think of the Never Biden movement? You know, that's basically what I call anyone who unfollows me on Twitter. By the way, Mehdi has me blocked because I pointed out he was lying about Assad. I busted his ass on Twitter. I'm like, oh, really? You're saying this? You were calling critics of the American policy in Syria. You're calling them Assad apologists, and now you're upset that somebody's calling you an Assad apologist. Isn't that weird? And then he blocked me. That's Mehdi. He's as white as they come, which is why he got a job at The Intercept. Except for Glenn Greenwald, that Intercept is really hurting. Really hurting. Bunch of soft brains over there. A bunch of Russia-gating, McCarthy smearing, fucking knuckleheads. And I love how neoliberals now are pointing to Chomsky. As look, listen to Chomsky. They never listened to him before. But listen to him when he's wrong. That's what they'll tell you. Neoliberals thinking they understand Chomsky because of this one take are like people who think they know the Beatles because they heard that one song that one time. That is correct. But look at this. You want to know who else Joe Biden is? Noam Chomsky? All you need to know, Biden is reportedly weighing billionaire Michael Bloomberg and Jamie Dimon for his cabinet posts. You still think there's a difference? The establishment wing of the party didn't fall into line behind Biden, despite the fact that he put Bloomberg and Jamie Dimon in his cabinet. They did it because of that. This is who they are. Want to know who Nancy Pelosi is? You know what her big idea is right now? You know how people are losing their health care left and right? Because in America, we tie our health care to people's jobs because our government's corrupt. And Nancy Pelosi became a 100 millionaire while she was a congressperson and the leader of the Democrats. Didn't impeach George Bush for war crimes, but impeached Donald Trump for a phone call to the Ukraine. Why? Because she was complicit in those war crimes. Nancy Pelosi is complicit in those war crimes. That's why she didn't prosecute them. She's prosecuting Donald Trump while she's complicit in war crimes. And you know what her big idea is now? Here's Nancy Pelosi's big idea. You ready? Democrats' big coronavirus idea is to subsidize health insurers. So instead of them just expanding Medicare, this is like Trump is doing for coronavirus. So if you get sick with coronavirus, you go to the hospital, you don't pay anything. No out-of-pocket pays, no back end, no nothing. They take care of it for you until you're healthy. And the government pays the hospital right through the Medicare system. Nancy Pelosi's big idea is no. When people lose their jobs, we'll pay for their COBRA. That's what her idea is. Instead of pushing for public health solutions, Democrats want to cover COBRA premiums. Can you believe this? So, you know, when you lose your job, your employer doesn't pay for their part of your health insurance anymore. So you get the option of keeping your present health insurance now that you don't have a job, and your part of your payment for your premium goes up about 1,000,000%. Like usually somewhere around $1,000 a month or more. Just for the insurance. That's not your co-pays, that's not your out-of-pockets, that's not. So this is her big idea. That's who the Democrats are. I love this question. Hey, why didn't you ask Chomsky to share his thoughts on Biden's apparent cognitive deterioration? Chomsky basically founded modern cognitive science. The question should have been a no-brainer, pun intended. That's great. Hey, why didn't you ask Chomsky to share his thoughts on Biden's apparent cognitive deterioration? You got the guy who's the father of modern cognitive science. A fun exercise is to look at what Chomsky has said about past Republican candidates. Oh, really? I wonder what he said. Turns out that every one of them is an unprecedented emergency that demands a lesser of two evil votes. Romney, for example, was going to start a nuclear war. That's what he says. He just said it again, nuclear war. Even though it was Barack Obama who dedicated $1 trillion to upgrade our nuclear arsenal. In 92, Chomsky said a vote for Bill Clinton because of the Supreme Court threat. It goes way back. So let me just tell you this, and here's another reason why Chomsky's wrong. Bill Clinton was not the lesser of two evils either time he ran. Bill Clinton was the greater evil. How's that, Jimmy? Well, George Bush the first wanted to pass. This is one example. George Bush the first wanted to pass NAFTA. He couldn't do it. Why? Because the Democrats, who at that time were still beholden to workers, they still kind of represented workers, they couldn't vote for NAFTA because their union voter base knew it was the death of them. So then Bill Clinton he beats George Bush the first. He becomes president. They tried to pass NAFTA with George Bush the first, couldn't get it done, couldn't get it passed through Congress. Bill Clinton does. Bill Clinton gives cover to the Blue Dog Democrats so they can go ahead and vote to screw over unions and vote for NAFTA. George Bush couldn't get that done. Who could? The Democrat, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton could get that done. He was the greater evil. Bill Clinton deregulated Wall Street. At the same time, he exploded the prison population while gutting welfare and cutting the legs out from underneath our workers and our unions by passing NAFTA. That was the great... George Bush the first would not be allowed to do any of those things. And then Bill Clinton totally changed the party. We became a party that represented workers to a party that represents Wall Street. That's what the Democratic Party is right now. They don't represent workers. And so he's wrong about this. And it was Joe Biden who made sure Antonin Scalia and Clarence Thomas got on the Supreme Court. So do you see how wrong Chomsky could be when he's wrong? When he's wrong, he doesn't fuck around. He's right most of the time, but when he's wrong, holy shit, he swings for the fences. And here's exactly why Chomsky's wrong. Glenn Greenwald is going to tell you why Chomsky's wrong. Because Chomsky is advocating for the same failed non-strategy of voting that he's been advocating for since 1992. Which is vote the lesser of two evil and cross your fingers. So, here we go. Here's what Glenn Greenwald says.
And I think what people are starting to realize is two things. Number one, when you pledge your unconditional support to politicians, meaning when you say, like Chomsky does, no matter who you pick, no matter how adverse he is to my political ideology and my set of policy preferences, I'm going to vote for you. I'm going to support you. They start to realize that you have no leverage. There's no reason for them to do anything but ignore you with contempt, because you're basically in this subservient position you put yourself in where you say, I don't care how much you trample on my values, I'm still going to vote for you. Why would anybody listen to a group of people who say that and who say, oh, we want concessions? Why would I give you concessions if you've already told me that at the end of the day you're going to vote for me anyway? I'm not going to give you concessions. I'll give concessions to the people who may not vote for me, meaning centrists or Republicans or disaffected suburbanites or whatever. So that's one problem with that strategy, is it guarantees your own impotence.
And Chomsky's advocating for that. And Chomsky's idea is, well, we could influence Biden more. You want to see Joe Biden telling you how much he cares about influence? Because he knows he's in with the donor class and he'll never lose his race in that small state, Delaware. Watch this. Here's a guy who's telling you how much he responds to pressure from his voters. Watch this.
I don't care if all the American people say he shouldn't be on the court. If I thought he should be, I would vote for him on the court, and vice versa. That's my responsibility, my sworn responsibility. But this...
Now's the guy who helped Clarence Thomas and Antonin Scalia get on the court. That's that guy. Chomsky said you got to vote Clinton because of the Supreme Court in 92. I'm sure he said it. He said it here today. Here's Joe Biden telling you how well that works.
Notion.
Nothing would fundamentally change. That's Joe Biden's words. I love how this guy says Chomsky also just showed he can't do arithmetic. If you vote for Trump, that's +1 for Trump. If you vote for Biden, that's +1 for Biden. If you vote for any other candidate, that's +1 for that candidate. That's all. Beyond the Electoral College, there is no 4D logic occurring. No, there's no logic to what Chomsky's saying. This is that's the arithmetic. He's inventing some new kind of arithmetic that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. That's made up. That's how we got to this position. And I appreciate Mehdi never asking Chomsky what he thinks about Joe Biden's dementia. Here's what Fiorella Isabella from Convo Couch says. She says to use Latino populations as tokenized votes is something Democrats love to do. Joe Biden stood by the Obama administration as the Obama administration built the foundations for cages, and as Clinton pushed a coup to oust the democratically elected leader of Honduras, leading to mass migrations. It's hilarious. And here's Kyle Kalinske. He tweeted out, as a left-winger who will not vote for Biden, I want you to know I'm 100% okay with you blaming me if Trump wins a second term. I mean it. Blame me. Then get to thinking real hard how you're going to get me to support your candidate the next time. Maybe even ask me. I'll tell you. That's how politics works. Just so you know, that's how politics works. If you want my vote, you have to come get it. That's how politics works. But Joe Biden, just like Hillary Clinton, are expected to garner votes without having to campaign for them. And of course, here's Mehdi. Mehdi comes by. He says, if you're okay with a white nationalist winning a second term, I question your left-wing credentials. Hey, you're a Russiagating warmonger. Mehdi, you're a Russiagating warmonger. You're a McCarthyite smearing anti-journalist who actually goes after real journalists like Seymour Hersh, who you're not fit to lick his balls, and you somehow wanted to criticize his reporting on Syria when it was correct. And of course, you're pushing the CIA line because that aligns up with your beliefs, your crazy, fucked up beliefs. He says, if you're okay with a white nationalist winning a second term, I question your you're going to question someone's left-wing credentials? You phony. Such a phony lefty. And, of course, Joy Reid joins him. That's the company Mehdi keeps. Joy Reid, just so you know. And Mike Figueredo says, hey, folks, wish my friend Mehdi Hassan luck. He's currently auditioning for a job at MSNBC. They noticed him, and I think they like him. Rooting for you, bud. So Chomsky couldn't be more wrong. He was wrong in 2016 when he said this. I said he was wrong then, and he's wrong now. And you know, in true Chomsky fashion, he doesn't do anything halfway. So when he's right, he's 100% right, and when he's wrong, he's 1,000% wrong. It doesn't. I mean, I could be drunk and high and out-debate him on this one. Luckily, I'm not. I just have a little coffee in me today. Hey, this is the part where I tell you where our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then I would tell you to go join our premium, but nobody has a fucking job. So why don't you just enjoy the video?